Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker podcast. I'm joined today by a very special guest to talk NC State women's basketball before they head to, well, they're already in San Antonio, to embark on the NCAA tournament journey after winning back-to-back ACC titles. We will introduce that special guest right after we introduce our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 five-star reviews. Give Gage Kistner a call today at 480-401-1681 or email Gage directly at gkistner@jfqlending.com. That's the letter G, KISTNER @jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending Inc., Equal Access Lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. And, of course, you can always watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up. Okay, our special guest is former Wolfpacker Debbie Antonelli here to talk NC State women's hoops. Debbie, you called your second straight NC State ACC tournament championship. As I was telling you right before we started here, it was a little bit different this year considering you were presenting the trophy in 2020 in Greensboro before the world completely changed. So was this one sweeter? Was it a little bit different? It was obviously different, but how do you compare ACC championships? It's the first time in program history that it's been done at NC State.
Well, Justin, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me, to your podcast. I'm thrilled to talk about NC State women's basketball at any time. This particular year has been really unique and special. I mean, for the players and coaches to be able to follow the protocols and do all they needed to do in a pandemic, to be able to cut down the nets was really remarkable. This is a really special team on a really special journey, and I'm looking forward to watch it play out in the next few weeks.
Well, as people that are watching on our YouTube channel can see, you are in a hotel room. You're in Indianapolis for the NCAA tournament bubble. You're going to be calling some of the games there in Indy. So what's your bubble experience like? Has it I think you just got there yesterday, so what's it been like so far?
Well, I've got lots of work to do with the 4 games that I have on my schedule right now. I have 2 games Friday, 2 Saturday, and I am in Bloomington, so I will be in Assembly Hall calling those games. Utah State, Texas Tech, Cleveland State, Houston on Friday, and then St. Bonaventure and LSU and Ohio U and Virginia on Saturday, and then we'll find out what we do next. We only know that part of our schedule so far, but we'll find out what comes Sunday and Monday. I got some peanut butter and jelly. I've got some water, and I got a few snacks, and I got a yoga mat. I picked all that up when I landed, and I'm good to bunker in here in the bubble for a while in my hotel room until games start on Friday.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of tweets about some of the cold food up there, so hopefully you're getting fed well while you're up there. But anyways, let's talk more about the NC State women's team. I know you've called some of their games this year. You were there calling the ACC tournament. What's it been like broadcasting during the pandemic? Because, I mean, it seems like, a lot of these games have been done remote. Has that been kind of a challenge this year during COVID-19?
You know what, Justin, we've adjusted to it. This summer, I did 30-plus games from the WNBA bubble from my home. So it was the first time basketball had ever been called remotely like that. So we got a chance to experience that on the front end. And then ESPN allowed us to have a home kit so we could do most of our work from home. It's certainly different. I mean, having traveled for 33 years, it's a much different experience calling games from home. There's a lot of things about it I really liked. There were some other things that I really miss. And the things that I miss the most are actually the squeak and the smell and the snap of the net and being in the gym and being around all the people and players and coaches and learning the game from practice, which I really enjoy going to. I love practice. So those are things that I sort of missed, but it gave me more time to watch film and allowed me a little bit more prep time minus the travel, which I love that part of it as well.
Really is kind of the energy sometimes that lacks. I'd been to some regular season games at Reynolds and PNC Arena, and it didn't feel that much different. But once you got to Greensboro for the ACC tournament, just it felt weird with some of the silence and some of the transitional points. But okay, so NC State got the number 1 seed after 8 or so days of debate, long discussion. I know Charlie Cream at ESPN had NC State as a 2 for the longest time. NC State fans, as you know, love to feel slighted. That was a big ordeal. NC State deserved the number 1 seed. Well, turns out they were the first ones off the board during the selection show on Monday. They're the number 3 or number 4 overall 1 seed, I believe. I think they're number 3. But with that said, I mean, do you think this NC State team was deserving of that number 1 seed with all of the debate that went into it?
There's no question in my mind they were a 1 seed. Actually, Charlie should have gone with his instinct and not what he thought the committee was going to do. Because in my conversations with him, there's nobody that works harder on trying to put the bracket together than Charlie Cream, and he does a great job on the women's side. But he knew in his gut that they were a 1. And so, I can tell you this, the very first game, I don't mind telling this to Wolfpack Nation because this is exactly how I felt in November in the North Florida game. I called that game from home. It was the first game of the season. And when the game ended, I picked up the phone and I called a couple of my teammates and I told them, we're going to the Final Four. This team is already better than last year's team that cut down the nets in Greensboro. That's not a slight on Ace Koenig, who is an incredible player, great three-point shooter. Reyna Perez is a different kind of point guard. Ace was not a natural point guard, and Ace would have loved playing with Reyna because of the way Reyna can distribute the basketball and do what I call answer the 3 W's, who to get the ball to, when, and where. And I was impressed with them in November. I knew they were on a special journey back then, and I'm not surprised to see them as a 1 seed. I think they have the maturity to be able to handle it. I don't think they'll be looking at it as this is the first time they've been back-to-back champs or the first time they've been a 1 seed. I think they'll look at it as what is the next thing we have to do to win. And this is a very mature group that is a very exciting team to watch play. And I'm happy to break down anybody's game on their team because I am so impressed with how hard they've worked and how much each one of them have improved as the season has gone on.
Well, I completely agree with you, Debbie, on the fact that Reyna Perez is the difference maker on this team compared to last year. And shout out to Ace Koenig, who signed a training camp contract with the Washington Mystics last night. I know she's been working really hard to get, her foot in the door in the WNBA, and she's beloved by Wolfpack fans. So shout out to her. Keep tracking her. Pac Pro doing good stuff. I know she went to Switzerland and won a championship over there. So, but again, Reyna Perez coming up big. She made the big shot in the ACC championship game. There's ice in her veins. She's not afraid to shoot it when she's called upon, but she's certainly not afraid to pass it when she needs to. And it's her assist to turnover ratio that's just so dang impressive. I think she led the country for a good portion of the year. But do you think that also, having a point guard like that just kind of keeps everybody cool, calm, and collected, do you think that kind of leads NC State to have this feeling like even if they're down 10 points, like they were in the semifinals in the fourth quarter against Georgia Tech, or 8 points to Louisville, or 16 points up at Boston College earlier this year, that they still feel like they're going to have a pathway to victory?
I don't think there's any question. Again, it speaks to their offensive maturity. I mean, if you think about those instances that you just mentioned, you have to have a measure of confidence that you can make the next play. And I think NC State believes they can make the next play. And Wes is so good late game at calling the right set or putting people in the right positions. But at the end of the game, it's about the players making the right play. The thing about Reyna Perez that we wondered, she was such a big-time scorer when she came to NC State. How would she manage playing with the kind of talent that she was going to have around her? And she answered that very quickly in my mind from the first game. Just the way she sees the floor, the temperament she plays with. And, of course, you mentioned her assist-turnover ratio is outstanding. I mean, she's got a lot of weapons to get the ball to, and they can make plays and they can make shots. And, you know, I see the game through an offensive lens. I always have seen the game through an offensive lens. And NC State scores to set up their defense. And, you know, they got a lot of balance. They've got a lot of weapons. I think Kayla Jones is the best hybrid 4 in the country. I've been saying it all year. She's not just a stretch 4. If you remember the beginning of the year, Wes was trying to figure out a way to get Jada Boyd more minutes, get her on the floor, was going to move Kayla to the 3. And then he settled back in a rotation with Jada coming off the bench, which is fine. Jada's a 6th starter. It's not a, you know, we get caught up in that too much, I think. But the combination of Camille Hobby and Jada Boyd changes the dynamic of the game on the front line versus what Elisa Cunane and Kayla Jones bring. But to my point about Kayla being a really good hybrid 4, here's the difference that I define it as. A stretch 4 can pick and pop, shoot the 3 on the top of the floor in the middle third from one slot to the other. But what Kayla can do is she can do all of that, but she also can make decisions with a ball in her hand. She can play in a ball screen offense. She can put it on the floor. She can invert to the block. So she's not just a pick and pop stretch 4 that can shoot the 3. She can do more than that, which makes her a hybrid, and I think makes her invaluable to what NC State's doing.
So just looking at the bracket right now, I know you already said that NC State is a Final Four pick of yours, but that was back in November before the brackets were released. It's tough to have a bad draw when you're a 1 seed in the tournament, but you got a tough 2 seed in Texas A&M at the bottom of that bracket. Do you still see this NC State team getting to the Final Four? Where do you see them on your official bracket?
Yeah, I have them getting to the Final Four on my bracket, meeting UConn and beating UConn. I think that is the way it's going to play out for NC State. I think this is a team that has a chance to play for a national championship. I'm going to be saying that everywhere I go. So that's not just for NC State Nation. I really believe that. And I believed it in November that they had a legitimate shot. Elisa Cunane continues to be the axis. You know, they play to and through her. She's a willing passer. She's gotten better at playing through the double teams. I think she's gotten tougher as the season has gone on. And I think Jada Boyd brings an incredible explosion off the bench. I think Jakia Brown-Turner is undervalued on the national scene. All the things that she does for NC State, she guards the best perimeter player. She's a scorer. She can shoot the 3. She can go off the bounce. She's big and strong. She plays with that unassuming demeanor, which I think is invaluable. You know, you got big smile with all of her emotion. And then you got Jakia Brown-Turner who kind of balances it out. And Kayla is right in the middle. I mean, the senior class has been really outstanding. And you can't, you know, we might not even be having this conversation about NC State being a 1 seed if it wasn't for the play of Kai Crutchfield late. I know Kai probably wants to be more of a scorer, but on actually understanding her value for what she does and how important her role is. You know, we get caught up too much in watching the scoreboard for points and rebounds. Kai does a lot of other things that make the chemistry of the team work. And she can take on the best perimeter defender as well. So you don't have to always have just one person that's the lockdown defender. This is a well-constructed team. Camille Hobby was able to get better and get quality minutes when Cunane was out. I think Wes has really enjoyed having the pieces that he has to put together. I mean, this is a really, you know, I'm more worried about what are we going to do about celebrating on Hillsborough Street should they win the whole thing. I mean, how are we going to handle that in a pandemic? That's going to be how are we going to handle a parade in a pandemic?
Well, considering North Carolina fans rushed Franklin Street after beating a Duke team that didn't even make the NCAA tournament twice, I mean, I think it's only fair for NC State students to find some way to celebrate. If the women get it done in San Antonio in, 3 weeks from now, it's going to be just a straight shot.
Spoken as a true Wolfpacker there, Justin. I hear you about Duke and North Carolina, and I will tell you that my freshman year when we won the national championship at NC State, I was on Hillsborough Street running around, and I am very proud of that experience with my teammates. We had a great time, which was more than a night. There was extended nights celebrating that national championship, but I don't want to get too far ahead and get people to think, you know, that this is going to be an easy task. This is not easy. This is a very challenging And some teams have really been able to thrive with their team chemistry inside this bubble setting, and I think NC State's one of them.
Well, they're going to need to play better than they did in Greensboro. Wes Moore would be the first person to say that, and I think that's what makes this NC State team scary, is the fact that they were able to win the ACC championship without really playing a complete game over that 3-game stretch. You know, they put themselves in a tough spot in the semifinals and the championship, and the 3-point shooting wasn't really there. I think it was at its best against Georgia Tech in the semifinals, but they really had to lean on Elisa Cunane to get it done when it counted. You mentioned Kai Crutchfield. Her defense on Dana Evans in the championship game was phenomenal. She was also a first-team all-tournament selection in the ACC tournament, but you're going to need girls like Jakia Brown-Turner to knock down some of those open shots. I know she struggled with her shot a little bit in Greensboro, and to your point about Camille Hobby and Jada Boyd coming off the bench, I mean, it really makes this team multidimensional, considering you can't just try to get Cunane in foul trouble and that's the recipe to beat the Wolfpack. They've got some front court depth, but where do you see the number one improvement NC State could make in the NCAA tournament compared to how they played in the ACC tournament?
Well, think about it like this. I mean, Kai Crutchfield is the 5th offensive option, and she's on the all-tournament team, allowing NC State to, win back-to-back ACC championships. So that tells you how well constructed this team is and how many different ways they can find a way to win. Now, I know, back-to-back fourth quarter comebacks in ACC championship games is legendary status, right? I mean, we know how great that is to be able to do that and to be able to say that now, but that's not easy to do. And you get to the NCAA tournament and you get to the postseason, I'm a big believer that whatever you do well, about a third of it is going to be taken away. So if you score a lot of points off your defense, probably a third of that's going to be taken away. Games are going to shrink, possessions shrink, teams are better, they don't turn the ball over. If you score a lot in transition, teams will be willing to give up going to the offensive glass to take you out of that. And so you've got to really be good at executing in the quarter court. And the thing that NC State does really well is they move the ball and they share the ball. So they got to keep doing that for open, uncontested shots. I expect that they will continue to do that. And the shots are going to fall. I'm not worried about anybody having a bad shooting night going into the NCAA tournament. That's not something that I would think about, because as a player and as a shooter myself, I'm always thinking next shot, how much time I've put in, all the reps I've put in. Jakia Brown-Turner has worked relentlessly on her game. So I'm not worried about any of them lacking for confidence going into this environment. Playing as a number one seed is a different mentality because you do have a little bit of a target on your back, but they shouldn't have any problem getting to the Sweet 16, and I don't expect them to have any problem advancing to play Texas A&M. I mean, Indiana was picked to win the Big Ten and did not complete the task. They're a veteran team. That's what you worry about, an older team in this environment like NC State. But NC State should have enough weapons and should win most of those matchups. And it's interesting. Ashley Williams is an assistant coach, one of the former NC State players. So she's an assistant at Indiana. She was a former walk-on to scholarship player to starter for Wes Moore. So I'm sure she wasn't happy to see NC State on her side of the bracket, because I think she'd rather be rooting for NC State than trying to beat them. But that's a nice little interesting storyline to keep an eye on. But A&M is good. They're balanced. They're athletic. They can score. They play a moderate tempo. They've got veteran players. They're experienced. And that's what you sort of worry about as a team that has that kind of experience.
And you mentioned that you think you have NC State beating UConn in your Final Four. How do you think NC State matches up to a team like UConn, assuming that both the one seeds advance to the Final Four?
Well, I think if you can take Paige Beckers away and make her go left, that's the top of the scouting report, obviously, to me. I watched Paige Beckers in the Big East tournament make 23 field goals in 3 games, and 20 of them were made on the right side of the floor. So right away, to me, that's an indicator that you got to make her go left and try to keep them on the left side of the floor, because she is very talented. She'll be an All-American this year. ESPN has already made her Player of the Year, ESPN.com. has made her player of the year, which is the writers. Um, I think they're talented. Gino, obviously, it's the name on the front of the chest sometimes that you have to worry about when you play them, and their experience, and they're very talented. But NC State's a more veteran team. I think they would relish the opportunity to get a chance to get that far, because once you get to the Final Four, right now you're thinking, can we get to the Final Four? But NC State should be thinking about how they can win. How they can win the national championship. That's the mentality that they have to take in it, and they have to take that mentality that they're the best team every night they step on the floor, that they're the best players every night they step on the floor, because that's what the rest of the field is going to be thinking.
Well, I like your optimism, Debbie. I also have NC State. I have them over Stanford in the national championship game. I got Baylor and Maryland as my other two Final Four picks, so we'll see. I like to get a little bit more random. I don't want to have 4 1 seeds, but, you never know what ends up happening. One last.
Well, I'm going to give you one more hot take on the tournament, because I actually think Virginia Tech is going to give Baylor all they can handle, and I'm thinking that Virginia Tech is going to. I think Virginia Tech can beat Baylor. I think that much of how they play, their style of play versus what Baylor's capable of doing. I think Kenny Brooks has enough athleticism, and I think they will give Baylor a game because they can score, and they can score from a variety of positions. And they have Kitley inside, which is somebody unique to Baylor. They haven't seen anybody like Elizabeth Kitley. And Asia Shepherd is going to have a big game. On this stage, that kid has worked way too hard not to get an opportunity to show off, because I think they play with an incredible chip on their shoulder. So that's my hot take for the tournament.
I like that. Virginia Tech has impressed me. One of NC State's 2 losses this year. You have to hope that Shepherd's going to be healthy coming into the tournament, knock down some shots. It really helped the Wolfpack that she wasn't on her A game coming off that little ankle tweak. I think in the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. Right. My hot take in that bracket is Syracuse over UConn in the second round. Syracuse, the feel-good story. Maybe they're fully healthy going into the tournament. Maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot picking against the Huskies. That seems like kind of a bad idea. But, I got Cuse in my Elite Eight, so you never know how it ends up in March.
You know what, Justin? Just to have a conversation like that, to think that actually in the second round, 2 former national champions could be knocked out, speaks to the balance of the game, and that there might be a chance. I mean, there is a way Syracuse can beat UConn. They have 6-7 in the middle if they give her the ball and she can finish. And then you're referencing Tiana Monacahia, who is by far one of the best comeback stories in the NCAA tournament, and that will be really interesting to see. I mean, she could have a big game. It will be fun to watch. It'll be really fun to watch that matchup.
Debbie,
I hope I get it.
Well, thank you so much for your generosity with your time. I know you're very busy this week covering the NCAA tournament, so we'll let you go to your Zooms. One quick big picture question for you: is Wes Moore the coach of the year?
He will be my coach of the year pick, because I vote on the Naismith coach of the year, and yes, absolutely. I think he and Brenda Fries at Maryland have done the 2 best coaching jobs, along with Tara Vanderveer. But I'm going to pick West because they've knocked off 2 number 1s and they won the ACC championship. And just because I've watched this team mature and develop and grow. So he'll have my vote.
Well, I like it. The Wolfpackers will love this podcast, hearing you talk about Wolfpack basketball and picking them to win the national championship. Wes Moore, popular pick for head coach of the year. So again, Debbie, thank you very much. For those listening at home, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. You can always stream us on thewolfpacker.com. While you're on thewolfpacker.com, use promo code PACK60. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Follow us on social media. You can follow our main account at The Wolfpacker. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will, and you can follow Debbie at Debbie Antonelli on Twitter. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Debbie for joining us, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.